All right. So, as we were going through this lesson on the law of superposition, I kind of got the feeling some of you guys weren't really getting it. And I really wanted to get this point hammered home before we move on. Now, when looking at the law of superposition, all we're saying is that if you look at a rock layer that's nothing has happened to, that rock layer is going to go from old to young, whereas you have the oldest on the top and sorry the youngest on the top and the oldest on the bottom. That's pretty much the first part of it. Okay, now what I did tell you guys is that it's not a perfect world. Things happen. Those things are the result of different tectonic plates, or what we will call a fault. Some faults will move rock up, some move it side to side, but either way, there are going to be these breaks in rock layers that don't make them line up so nice and neatly that you can say old, young, and so forth. There is some things that make them a little bit confusing. Um, One of the things that is uh, even as important to understand is this whole thing about magma intrusions. So we talked about what igneous rocks and that they're made up of hot magma at some point in time. And during that eruption, what's going to happen is that all that hot magma is going to burn its way out of the volcano and into any layers of rock around it. Now, once this magma cools off, it's no longer going to be magma. It's going to turn into nice uh, rock. It's going to turn to igneous rock. And igneous rock is designated by having this vertical alignment. And the rule is that igneous rock is always younger than the layers it cut through. Okay, even a little bit. If it cuts through that rock layer, it's going to be younger. So let's look at some of the questions that are going to exemplify this. So here we have two questions. And if I wanted to know what is the age of this rock from old to young, so we're going to go from old to young. And as we practiced in class yesterday, that's pretty much how your test is going to line up. So we're going to go and we're going to apply the law of superposition directly. So at the bottom is older, as the top is younger. And one of the first things we really want to make sure we understand is where are our intrusions. So I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, that's an intrusion and that's an intrusion. How do I know? Because they're rock layers that are going straight vertical. And we know the only rock layers that go vertical are intrusions. So I have to be aware of these two because I know intrusions are younger than anything they go through. And this layer is going through everything. So I know C is my youngest layer. I know that right away because it's intrusion going through everything. Now I have to figure out between A and D which one is older. Now I want you to look at this fault line right here. Okay, so this fault line, if we were to level this off, we can go this way or we can push it up. But either way, if we were to make this horizontal, you would see that D would end up at the bottom of A. So D would be my oldest rock layer. And then I'm going to go with E being it. Now, E doesn't go through A, so I know that A wasn't around when E erupted. So we can go D, then E, then A, okay, then B, then C. So this is my right answer here. If I want to go from old to young, that's how I'm going to phrase that. Now, on this side here, if we're looking at this rock layer, once again, I'm going to identify my intrusion. And we know that's the youngest rock layer because it's going through everything. And then I have to be aware of this fault. Now, here's what I also know is that this fault was probably caused by an earthquake, and this earthquake is also older than the intrusion. How do I know? Because the intrusion cuts through. It's on top. So it's actually over the earthquake. So the earthquake happened first. So here I have my C. Layer C is first. then layer B because it got pushed up, then A, then D. And that's all we're looking at. We're trying to read the rock layers and see what came first, second. Okay, so we're looking at another example here. And if I wanted to know this layering from old to young, I'm kind of going to do the same thing as I did before. I'm going to really look for my intrusions. And as you can see, I have an intrusion of D that got broken off. Now in this example, the intrusion is actually older than the earthquake. How do I know? The earthquake broke apart the intrusion. So in other words, if the intrusion wasn't there, the earthquake couldn't break it apart. So I'm going to go with B, then A, then D. And if I wanted to add, I can say the earthquake occurred. So we had a rock layer minding its own business. Then after that rock layer, we had some sand that dumped on top of it for a new couple thousand years. Then there was a volcano eruption. Then there was an earthquake. That is what your archaeologists and your paleontologists and geologists are going to do. They're going to read the rock layers and say, hey, what happened first? And going from oldest to youngest. Here's another example. So which of the following is the oldest? So I'm going to look at my answer choices and say, hey, is it L? Let me find where L is. Okay, L is way up here. Okay. Is it H? H is now, hopefully in your brain, you're saying H is an intrusion because it's going vertically. Is it intrusion D? Okay. Let me unzoom that. Or is it layer E? So L, E, H. All right, so in this one here, I want to know which is the oldest. And that's all I want to know. I want to know which one is the oldest. So I'm going to go bottom first. Now, the answer here, hopefully you said was E. Now the question is, why is it E? One is that E is at the lower. So the law of superposition says the lower is always going to be your older one. But the next thing is that D goes through these both. And H also goes through E. So based upon our exemption rule, it says that, hey, an intrusion is always younger than any layer they go through. I know it can't be D or H. This one here, it would be layer E. And it can't be L because L is on top of E. So it's all right, so I hope that helped you guys understand a little bit of the lesson that we've been talking about the last couple of days. And I look forward to your participation in class.